when the Vanderbilt family fortune reached its zenith in America's Gilded Age, it produced not just unprecedented wealth, but unspeakable loneliness for one Consuelo Vanderbilt. And the same millions that could import entire French salons, stone by precious stone, across the Atlantic, could also isolate their inheritors within walls built more for spectacle than sanctuary. You see, her daily existence unfolded within the most magnificent private residences ever constructed on American soil, where Paul-Jacques Aimé Baudry had painted mythological scenes across soaring ceilings, where Jules Allard's craftsmen had recreated the intimacy of Versailles within Manhattan's limestone fortress. Yet to walk through her world was to discover the peculiar isolation that architectural grandeur could impose. From the Gothic grandeur of her childhood home to the Baroque magnificence of Blenheim Palace, from French Château to Mediterranean monasteries, her residences would chart a course across 2 continents and 8 decades, each one more beautiful, each one more isolating than the last. Thus, in today's episode of Old Money Mansions, we explore the extraordinary homes that both elevated and imprisoned America's most famous dollar princess, tracing her journey from architectural captivity to the hard-won freedom of choosing her own walls. Consuelo Vanderbilt learned the weight of wealth before she learned to walk properly, strapped into steel rods that forced perfect posture, while European governesses drilled French conjugations into her developing mind. Born in 1877 to William K. Vanderbilt and Alva Erskine Smith Vanderbilt, she inherited architectural ambition alongside railroad millions. Her mother Alva curated existence itself like a Parisian salon, commissioning French artisans for bespoke rooms while ordering wardrobes exclusively from esteemed French dressmakers. No formal schools would contaminate this carefully controlled education. Languages, art, music, etiquette, and history filled her days within Manhattan's most extraordinary private residence, where weekly reviews demanded she recite everything learned to her exacting mother. The steel rod strapped to her spine served dual purposes, ensuring aristocratic bearing, while symbolizing the rigid control that governed every moment of her youth. William K. Vanderbilt provided financial backing for his wife's architectural campaigns against New York's established families, particularly the Astors, who had dared to exclude them from society's inner circles. Their taste merged cosmopolitan polish with American innovation, establishing new standards through rooms where mother-of-pearl met encrusted gold decorations beneath elaborate embroidered textiles. French original boiseries reflected endlessly in mirrors, while carved walnut panels in the style of Grinling Gibbons announced their arrival among Manhattan's elite. Every surface transmitted messages about power, refinement, and the Vanderbilts' determination to surpass families who traced their fortunes back generations rather than decades. Alva's relentless social ambition manifested through limestone facades and Parisian-trained decorators who transformed raw wealth into cultural capital. The young heiress absorbed these lessons through osmosis, learning that Caen stone signified quality, while Louis XV style represented the pinnacle of refinement. Scale itself became a weapon in social warfare, with rooms designed to intimidate as much as impress. Her childhood unfolded within spaces where 16th-century French Renaissance wood panelling surrounded rare books in 18 by 14-foot libraries. Music salons designed by Jules Allard in Paris arrived in pieces, assembled on site to transport visitors directly to Versailles. Paul-Jacques Aimé Baudry, fresh from decorating the Paris Opera, painted mythological scenes across ceilings that would inspire decades of New York imitators. The family even possessed an ebony secretary, made by Jean-Henri Riesner for Marie Antoinette at Saint-Cloud, now housed in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Gothic banquet halls stretched 50 by 35 feet and soared 2 stories high, featuring musicians' galleries and monumental double fireplaces sculpted by Karl Bitter. Austrian stained glass windows by Eugène Oudinot transformed sunlight into coloured patterns that danced across marble floors during legendary entertainments. This architectural education prepared Consuelo to manage palaces while leaving her emotionally unprepared for the isolation such grandeur guaranteed. The controlled environment that shaped her youth established patterns that would follow her from American mansions to English castles to French chateaux. always seeking comfort within spectacle. Her story began in rooms built for display rather than dwelling, where 1,200 guests could dance, while one young woman remained utterly alone. Richard Morris Hunt understood that Alva Vanderbilt wanted more than a mansion. She demanded an architectural declaration of war against old New York society. Between 1879 and 1882, the Petit Château materialized on Fifth Avenue as the first significant French Renaissance mansion in Manhattan, its grey Indiana limestone facade announcing new money's refusal to apologize. Hunt drew inspiration from Loire Valley Château while amplifying their drama through asymmetrical towers, turrets, and elaborate dormers beneath blue-grey slate roofs trimmed with extensive copper detailing. Grateful workmen placed a stone statue of Hunt himself above the roofline, their tribute to the architect who gave physical form to social revolution. Visitors entered through 60 feet of Caen stone that contemporaries declared the finest stonework in America, each surface carved to demonstrate unlimited resources. The music salon existed as Jules Allard's masterpiece, designed entirely in Paris before being disassembled, shipped across the Atlantic, and reconstructed piece by piece in Manhattan. Mythological ceiling paintings by Paul-Jacques-Aimé Baudry brought Paris opera glamour to Fifth Avenue, establishing artistic standards that would dominate New York taste for decades. At 2 stories high, the Gothic banquet hall commanded respect through sheer scale. Its musicians' gallery and Carl Bitter's monumental double fireplace creating theatre even when empty. Eugène Oudinot's Austrian stained glass windows fractured light into rainbow patterns that played across surfaces during Alva's legendary entertainments. The 1883 masquerade ball for 1,200 guests forced Mrs. Astor herself to acknowledge the Vanderbilts, her calling card left at their door, representing old society's capitulation to new money's architectural might. Young Consuelo absorbed these lessons while steel rods maintained her posture and her mother maintained her isolation, preparing her for a future where homes would always be stages. Construction began on Marble House in 1888, William K. Vanderbilt's birthday gift to Alva that would redefine Newport's summer colony through Beaux-Arts monumentality. Hunt returned as architect, creating a U-shaped plan wrapped in white Westchester marble with Corinthian columns that rivaled governmental buildings in the nation's capital. Bronze doors weighing 1.5 tons opened into halls of glowing sienna marble, where curving staircases rose with wrought iron and gilt bronze balustrades fabricated by Jules Allard in Paris. The ballroom existed as pure spectacle, mirrored surfaces, gilded details, and immense chandeliers creating infinite reflections of wealth and ambition. Pink and red Numidian marble pilasters lined the dining room, while the gold ballroom glimmered with such intensity that visitors compared it to Versailles' Hall of Mirrors. Alva's bedroom showcased custom Jules Allard furniture in Rococo and Baroque motifs, recycled French boiserie, creating complex layered spaces that recalled historic Parisian suites. The mansion announced itself as a residence for foreign royalty rather than American industrialists, every surface designed to overwhelm and intimidate. Modern innovations like indoor plumbing and electricity hid behind historicized facades, creating functional palaces that merged past grandeur with present comfort. Consuelo made her debut within these cathedral-like spaces, hosting dances orchestrated by her mother, while learning that architecture could imprison as effectively as liberate. Her marriage prospects would lead her across an ocean to a palace that made even Marble House seem intimate by comparison. "1895 brought Consuelo to Blenheim Palace with a dowry large enough to resurrect Britain's greatest Baroque monument from aristocratic decay. The palace, begun in 1705, commemorated military victories, but by Consuelo's arrival, it desperately needed American millions to maintain its theatrical grandeur. Vanbrugh and Hawksmoor's Great Hall soared 67 feet overhead, stone walls supporting elaborately gilded ceiling murals that flooded the space with light worthy of state occasions. Massive marble flagstones created patterns beneath her feet, while coloured marble inlays referenced both Roman precedents and French ambitions in every corridor. Columns and sweeping arches transformed simple movement through the palace into dramatic processions, each doorway framing another display of accumulated power. Paris became Consuelo's shopping destination for restoration materials, where she procured textiles, objets d'art, and furniture in Louis XVI and Regency styles to refill denuded rooms. French dealers and auction houses benefited enormously from her determination to restock Blenheim with pieces worthy of its architecture. The saloon functioned as the main dining room, elaborate stucco work and carved ornamentation surrounding mythological ceiling paintings above giant marble fireplaces that could warm crowds rather than individuals. One of the world's longest private libraries stretched through the palace, furnished with rare volumes, deep Georgian sofas, and a built-in organ that provided musical accompaniment to aristocratic leisure. State apartments received new French silk damask, Italian marble, English walnut, carpets, and gold leaf detailing that followed Edwardian fashion while respecting Baroque bones. Her personal apartments reflected different priorities: mirrored dressing tables, pastel silks, and embroidered linens, introducing feminine comfort to overwhelming masculine formality. Technology lagged despite restoration, with Blenheim remaining woefully short of bathrooms and modern electrical fittings by American standards, contributing to Consuelo's sense of isolation within splendour. Achille Duchesne arrived to create formal gardens that would rival Versailles, his vision for water terraces and Italian gardens, transforming the grounds into outdoor rooms worthy of the palace. The Italian garden emerged beside family apartments, with clipped box parterres, classical statues, intricate gravel paths, and Waldo Story's central mermaid fountain providing focal points for contemplation. Massimiliano Soldani's bronze figures joined 18th century urns and limestone steps in compositions that served as backdrops for the endless social events Consuelo was expected to host. London's social season required appropriate townhouses, leading the Marlboroughs to lease properties including Spencer House on St James's Place, that masterpiece of Palladian perfection built between 1756 and 1766. John Vardy and James Stewart had designed staterooms employing Greek and Roman motifs through scagliola Ionic columns, massive gilded doors, coffered ceilings, and elaborate stucco work that announced aristocratic heritage. Consuelo gave birth to her eldest son in Lady Spencer's room, the house serving simultaneously as private refuge and public stage for her new role. William K. Vanderbilt's guilt over his daughter's unhappy marriage manifested as Sunderland House on Curzon Street, built between 1901 and 1904 as compensation disguised as generosity. Occupying an entire Mayfair block, the grey stone facade stretched 60 feet wide and 100 feet deep, proclaiming American wealth's permanent presence in London. Electricity, central heating and modern plumbing made Sunderland House infinitely more comfortable than Blenheim, becoming Consuelo's headquarters for the social activism that would define her post-separation life. Freedom from the Duke in 1910 meant Consuelo could finally choose homes for comfort rather than consequence, beginning with Crowhurst Place's Tudor revival fantasy. George A. Crawley had transformed this 1425 timbered hall house into storybook England, adding wings, heightening roof lines with Horsham stone, and creating architectural nostalgia through oriel windows and picturesque gables. Half-timbering with whitewashed infill and dark oak beams furthered the medieval fantasy, while visitors approached over an actual drawbridge, spanning a defensive moat. Linen fold panelling throughout the interior provided warmth and supposed authenticity. Oak carved to resemble folded linen, evoking 16th century great houses. The double-height hall centred around a massive fireplace where guests gathered beneath oak beams, leaded casements filtering Surrey light into honeyed patterns. Antique English oak furniture mixed with tapestries and reading nooks, creating intimate spaces that prioritised welcome over grandeur for the first time in Consuelo's residential life. She personally designed the gardens, integrating herbaceous borders with formal arrangements that softened the building's defensive pretensions into domestic harmony. Paris called her by 1912 to 9 Rue Charles Floquet, where René Sergent had created the Hôtel de Marlborough in pure neoclassical style. The building occupied a corner plot near the Champ de Mars, its windows framing the Eiffel Tower, while referencing 18th century Hôtel Particuliers through every architectural detail. Semi-engaged Ionic columns supported the central bay's portico beneath an entablature and cornice decorated with bas-reliefs and garlands evoking Louis XVI refinement. Rooms arranged en enfilade created those long vistas through aligned doorways that defined French noble architecture, perfect for the entertaining that had become Consuelo's primary social currency. Intricately carved panelling framed her growing collection of paintings and French furniture, while natural light flooded salons through tall windows. Parquet de Versailles flooring supported period furniture beneath elaborate cornices. Gilded mirrors, multiplying space, while marble mantelpieces anchored each room's composition. Sergent had skillfully integrated central heating, indoor plumbing and electric lighting without disrupting traditional elegance, achieving comfort within classical constraint. Mediterranean dreams materialized in the 1920s at Villa Lou Seuil above Aise, where Achille Duchesne created monastic serenity merged with coastal drama. His design referenced the medieval convent of Le Toronnet through cloisters, bell tower and chapel, blending Provençal, Italianate and Romanesque forms in pale stone. Interconnected loggias and shaded salons faced panoramic sea views, while formal parterre edged with box descended through olive groves toward azure horizons. Heavy beams, arched doors and stone floors maintained the monastic theme inside, tall windows capturing Mediterranean light that transformed throughout each day. Normandy provided another refuge around 1922 when the Balsans acquired Château de Saint-Georges Motel, an early 17th century moated chateau awaiting transformation. Maison Janssen arrived to blend royal period French decorative arts with 20th century comfort throughout the square main block and corner pavilions. Reception salons showcased period panelling, gilded mirrors, and curated Louis XV and XVI furniture beneath imposing stone staircases that recalled grander days. Paul Mays received an artist's studio on the grounds, while guest rooms welcomed luminaries, including Winston Churchill, who painted in the gardens between political crises. These French residences represented Consuelo's evolution from enforced grandeur to chosen elegance, each property reflecting her journey toward authentic self-expression through architecture. Maurice Fatio brought Mediterranean sophistication to Palm Beach in the 1930s when he designed Casa Alva, wrapping stucco walls around courtyards while palm-shaded loggias caught ocean breezes. The architect created irregular massing that avoided symmetry's formality, with tiled arcades and rooms opening through terracotta roofing and wrought iron details toward tropical gardens. French boiseries appeared again, extensive panelling and antique detailing, creating familiar backgrounds for Consuelo's ever-expanding European art collection. Rooms expanded and multiplied as her collecting accelerated, new wings added whenever another cache of objets d'art required appropriate display space. Arched windows punctuated reception rooms where imported parquet floors supported sophisticated mixtures of Mediterranean ease and French Regency formality. Antique tapestries shared walls with chinoiserie, while period furniture from multiple centuries and countries created eclectic harmony through careful curation. Manhattan summoned her to 1 Sutton Place South in the 1940s. Rosario Candela's 1927 masterpiece of luxury apartment, living overlooking the East River. The limestone base and brick facade concealed her grand duplex, where sweeping staircases connected panelled libraries to double-height living rooms warmed by wood-burning fireplaces. Herringbone floors met ornate mouldings throughout, while custom silk wall coverings and gilded Regency details recreated Parisian sophistication within New York's vertical landscape. Dinner parties and musical evenings filled grand reception rooms where Manhattan's cultural elite gathered, Consuelo finally hosting by choice rather than obligation. Long Island offered grander possibilities at Old Fields, where 42 rooms of French Norman fantasy included round towers, stone facades, and steep pitched roofs that recalled European castles. Marble fireplaces anchored major rooms, while the mansion claimed distinction as one of the island's first air-conditioned homes, luxury extending to swimming pools and tennis courts. A direct telephone line to Europe maintained transatlantic connections, while gold-bronze hardware, marble staircases, and Art Deco lighting created temporal confusion between centuries. Period furnishings, personally selected by Consuelo, filled rooms where formal gardens visible through every window echoed Newport's golden summers and society's endless seasons. The Gold Coast's traditions continued even as the world that created them disappeared around properties too grand for modern life. Southampton provided her final significant residence at Cara Mia, 9,000 square feet of American shingle-style elegance, spreading broad porches beneath shingled upper stories. Original oak parquet floors remained pristine alongside the knotty pine library, sumptuously designed master suites, and those hidden butler's pantries that enabled seamless entertainment. French panelling arrived once more, imported and installed to frame European art. Louis XV furnishings and English silver in familiar combinations. Rose beds bloomed beside lily ponds, while mature landscaping created outdoor rooms for entertaining, the same social patterns continuing despite changed contexts. The woman born into Manhattan's Petit Château spent her final years surrounded by French boiseries and gilded mirrors, identical to those that witnessed her regimented childhood. Every residence traced American wealth's eternal quest for European validation, each property documenting evolution from imprisoned heiress to independent woman. Yet that French aesthetic imprinted by her mother remained constant, following her through Baroque palaces, Tudor manors, Mediterranean villas, and shingle-style estates. Consuelo Vanderbilt inhabited architectures of display for 8 decades, transforming houses built for impression into homes that finally, in her last years, offered the comfort her gilded childhood had never provided. And now we'd love to see you in the comments. Which residence of Consuelo Vanderbilt do you find to be the most tasteful? We look forward to hearing from you, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Old Money Mansions. Cheers!